Today I'm going to be talking about surfing. I'm going to go through a quick history of the sport as well as board transformation over time. Surfing is actually an ancient sport. We don't exactly know where it originated or how far back when it started. What we do know is that if it didn't start in Hawaii, we know they perfected it. The first documentation was by the European settlers. This was during the Captain Cook voyage in 1779. Captain Cook actually wasn't the one to record any of this. Captain Cook died in Hawaii when there was some scandal and they were trying to capture a chief of one of the Hawaiian territories. Obviously they didn't go well and he died. So who did write the pretty much first documentation of what surfing was like was Lieutenant James King. And I got a little quote from his 2 pages that he wrote and that I read that talks about what he saw. Quote, "But a diversion the most common is upon the water, where there is a very great sea. The men, sometimes 20 or 30, go out in the swell and lay themselves flat upon an oval piece of plan." King goes on to talk about what he sees and this kind of revolution of this sport that he can see that people are just doing for fun and there's no hierarchy to doing it and there's no tradition or there's no competition or anything like that. People are just going out and having fun. Unfortunately, once the European settlers started to go to Hawaii, we kind of killed their traditions and their culture. We killed off a ton of people. And along with that, we killed off the tradition of surfing. And surfing died for a while when this happened. The Christian settlers that were in Hawaii saw surfing as a sin and convinced fellow followers that this is something you shouldn't do, otherwise you're sinning and won't go to heaven. Surfing started making its comeback in the 1900s when people like George Freeth showed up or came on the scene and actually started surfing in California. This wasn't as big a spark as when Duke Peoa started surfing, which is another well-known name in surfing. He did a show in California. Duke was actually a Olympian swimmer and very publicized and well-known. So this brought surfing closely to mainstream California. Boards back then were still made of wood. Back in the 1700s and earlier, boards were actually made out of very thin, probably about the size of plywood, and these would range between 12 and 24 feet. And as that progressed in time, boards were still being made in the 1900s out of wood. They were a little thicker, and this is where boards weight-wise came in. They could be up to 50 plus feet or 50 plus pounds, which is extremely heavy. I mean, if you can imagine lugging around a board like that. And then surfing really took off in the late 1950s going into the 60s. This is really where lightweight foam came in and it really became mainstream California. Pretty much they came out with movies like The Gidget was a big one. There was also multiple other movies and pretty much flooded the beaches with surfers. To get away from the history, a little about boards today. This is a board I made about 5 months ago with my buddy. Boards today are pretty much made of an ultralight foam core, and on top of the foam core there's a fiberglass layer. Building your own surfboard is fairly easy. You order your own blank. Blanks come in multiple sizes, widths, all that. Just depends on what you're looking for. From there, you get this blank, you shape it into the size that you want, the width, the height, all of that. From there, you buy your fiberglass as well as the resin. You put a fiberglass layer on top of your shaped out blank and put your resin on. This concoction hardens and produces this hard layer that you can see on here. After that's hardened, you pretty much just get to sand a lot because it will come out really rough not smooth like this, so it takes a lot of sanding to get that smooth. Once that's done, you're just putting on a wet coat. Surfboard construction isn't as difficult as you would think, and it's relatively inexpensive. That's why I think it's a good option for people looking to start surfing and don't want to fork out $600, $600 plus for new boards, which is what manufacturers charge you. This board cost me about $250 to $275. Again, that's extremely cheap for what you're getting, because you'll get way more use out of this than pretty much any manufactured board, and you get the satisfaction of knowing you've made it. In conclusion, surfing has been around for centuries. However, the culture that's been instilled from the Hawaiians is still in pretty much every surfer today. We're out there to enjoy ourselves and have a good time. Also, the feeling you get from surfing is unlike none other. So if you haven't tried, you definitely should. There's pretty much no other feeling like it. And once the surfing bug bites, you're pretty much hooked for life. And that's my speech on surfing.